Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's been a long time since I've done any of these. That's a train going past. Because basically, I know it's the second week in August and I'm doing my July wrap up, but I started a new job at the end of July. So that's been a lot of work for me at the moment, trying to get used to that kind of thing. I also moved 260 odd miles from Durham to southeast London, which is where I am now, which is very exciting. I'm in my new flat, which is quite exciting. It's very shiny and very nice. So it's a little bit of a late July wrap up, but it's been a very busy July, so yeah, I deal with it. So, the first book that I read in July, which I think I had mentioned in my book haul for June, is Uprooted by Naomi Novak, which is a really good, fun kind of twist on a bit of a fantasy, a bit of a fairy tale story about a girl who is stolen by a wizard called the Dragon, who takes girls from the village. And she is taken and trained in the ways of magic by this wizard. Really enjoyed the atmosphere of this one. It's set on the edge of this very dark, forbidding forest, filled with all kinds of twisted creatures, and a very classic fantasy feel to it, without being pulled into the usual tropes of dragons and swords and all of that nonsense. So it was a bit of a girl in the tower story, but with a lot more to it, with a little bit less of the usual stereotypes. Our girl is she's badass, but not in the usual kind of strong female character way. She's smart, and the story is really well paced, very well driven. It has a little bit of a romantic subplot going on, which I thought was a little unnecessary, but I was able to push past it because it's not really there very much, actually, which I was fine with. And the cover's really pretty as well, which I'm always a fan of. The next book that I read in July was Storm Sisters, The Sinking World by Minty Das, which is a pirate YA story about 5 girls who they take to the high seas to try and track down the people responsible for the deaths of their parents. It's really fast-paced. It has these 5 very vibrant, very different female characters as the leads. Their interactions were what I thought made it really stand out. There's none of that usual kind of bitchiness between the girls. It's got a really positive view on female friendship, which I thought was really good fun. The pacing for it is good. It's constantly moving forward. There's always something going on, which is good. It means it moves really well. The language usage is contemporary, which I found a little jarring at first. So the characters don't speak in 17th century language, even though the book is set in the 17th century. But once the plot carries you away, you kind of stop noticing that. So I think that works in its favour, actually. After a while, it flows really well. Ebook only. I happen to have a physical copy because actually it's one of the books that I worked on at my new job, which is really exciting. So after that, I read some graphic novels, actually, because I was moving house, and that was really stressful, and I didn't have the energy to put into reading a novel, which is going to be really hard work. So I picked up a couple of graphic novel series that I got into. Injection, which is still only on volume 1 at the moment, which is a very dark kind of... It's an English story, and it's really weird. I'm not quite sure what it's about yet, but it has a lot of kind of ideas of forbidden science, uses a lot of mythology and folklore, which I am always a big fan of. Kind of seems to blend magic and witchcraft with science and science fiction aspects, and I enjoyed it. I thought the artwork was really cool. The way it teased out the story was very clever, and it's it's fun. It's a bit slow. I feel like the second volume, when it comes out, will probably build on it a little bit more, so I'm looking forward to that. And the other graphic novel series that I checked out is Saga, which I have heard so much about and was wary about reading because I heard lots about The Wicked and the Divine and I couldn't get into it. But Saga is freaking awesome. I've only read the first 2 volumes so far because I live in London now and I'm poor. And it's like a science fiction setting about a war between people on a planet and the people on their moon, who have these very fairy tale traits to them, but it's really smart, it's very funny, very clever, super violent, and the artwork is gorgeous, and it's just really quirky and really weird. I would definitely recommend reading it. It has a very Firefly sort of feel in its space ageness. Space ageness, probably not a word. But I loved it. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. I'm really looking forward to picking up the rest of the series. I know it's up to 6 volumes now, which is always really nice. It's really good for the old Goodreads progress as well. A nice long graphic novel series, which is good fun. But it's just really good. It's just really, really good. Really cool artwork, really distinct characters, kind of touches up on a couple of tropes, but does it really well. So I've thoroughly enjoyed those. What else have I done in July? I was lucky enough to go to YALC this year, which is the Young Adult Literature Conference, which is held as part of London Film and Comic Con. I went there for work, which was really cool. I picked up a load of stuff, which I'll go over in my book haul, which I'm going to film in a second. But one of the things that I did pick up and immediately read, because it's by one of my absolute all-time favourite authors, and just one of my favourite people in the world in general, is The King of Rats by Melinda Salisbury, which is a short story, or a novella, or no, I think it's a short story. I don't know what the difference is, actually, lengthwise, but still has the same gorgeous colours to match her Sunita's daughter books, which is a fable, kind of a story from her universe set earlier than the events of her main series, that takes some influences from the Pied Piper story, but in her standard way. She kind of twists it, fills it with her own sense of darkness and longing and kind of forbidden wants, and she's just really good. And I'm not saying that because she's, one of my friends. She's just really good. And her language usage in this is lyrical and haunting and really clever. She really creates a sense of urgency behind the story and kind of desperation in her characters, and as always works in healthy amounts of feminism into her characters without it being really overt. It's very subtly done, it's very cleverly done, and for such a short read it's absolutely captivating. Really, really good. And the other thing that I enjoyed particularly in July, although it creeps into August slightly, but I really want to talk about it now anyway, is I watched Stranger Things, as did I think half of the human population on the planet, and thoroughly enjoyed it. It's so good. I have struggled to find a horror TV series that I can get into. I have abandoned 3 series of American Horror Story so far because I don't ever feel like it is getting horror right. It's too busy. It's never subtle enough. Stranger Things did everything right. The 80s setting was perfect. The Spielberg-style group of children worked really well with the Stephen King sense of ominous kind of dread. The music was perfect, the acting was superb. It's intelligent horror done really well with that kind of coming-of-age Stand By Me feel to it. Absolutely brilliant. I would recommend anyone give it a go, and I think setting in the 80s was such a brilliant choice because they cut back on a lot of the technology that is available to these kids, makes their story feel so much more like an adventure. They don't have the ability to text each other or to tweet about anything. They have to rely on kind of their existence. There's something very ET about it. Yeah, it just feels perfectly done. It's very, very clever. And of course, I went to Yalc, as I mentioned earlier, which was phenomenal. I got the chance to meet some brilliant authors. I won't do too much name dropping, but V.E. Schwab gave me a cookie, and Patrick Ness shook my hand, which was pretty cool. And I met Mallory Blackman, and I had no chill whatsoever about Mallory Blackman. Because it's goddamn Mallory Blackman. She asked if she could have a badge off our stall. Mallory, you can have whatever you want. You're Mallory Blackman. Seriously. You can have my heart. Anyway, that's it for my July wrap-up. If you have come back to watch me after all this time that I have been away, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. I plan on making content more regularly now that I have things like the internet and kind of a schedule and a free time and things like that. So yeah. Also, look how cute my flat is. I'm so happy here. Isn't it magical? I'm not giving you a grand tour because then I'd have to stand up and I am lazy. But it's so cute.